Hello, everybody. This is Ryohei Onishi, and today I'm just thinking about giving a presentation because I gave a presentation this morning at the university in Tokyo. And then this presentation is titled, "Is our learning sustainable?" So I want to talk about this question over the next 30 minutes or so. And my goal for you is this, like for you to say, really, shut up, Ryohei. I want to read books now. So this is meant to be a motivational talk, motivational presentation for you to really start doing something, start learning something, right? So this is a table of contents. I want to talk about 6 things. First one is like 1, learning is at stake. 2, YouTube is a bi-directional school. 3, learning and environment. 4, learning and earning. Number 5, learning and returning. And 6, learning and sustainable. So this is what I'm going to talk about. Like the question is always like, is our learning sustainable, right? And then the first thing is this: learning is at stake. We need to know, we need to understand the current status, where we are right now in terms of learning. Our learning is now at stake, at risk, in danger. So I want to ask you this question: like, what do you do the first thing in the morning? Like when you wake up, what do you do the first thing? And then when I ask this question, some of them say like, when I wake up, I stand up. Of course you stand up, but after that, what do you do? Right. And another ones also say like, when I wake up, I sleep in once again. So that's some kind of answers that I heard from the people around me. But I guess most of the people have this kind of experience, like first thing you wake up and do is to touch your smartphone, right? So that's the status, that's the situation I'm talking about. So right. Anders Hansen once said that smartphones could make us stupid, right? Anders Hansen is actually from Sweden, and he is a Swedish scholar. And his book about smartphones, like this is the book that I have, like called Smahono in Japanese. This is a translation from Swedish language, I think. And then this has sold 600,000 copies in Sweden, where the population is just 10 million people, which means that 0.6% of the total population in a country have read his book, which I think is phenomenal. So he says that smartphones are the ones we're outsourcing a lot of our tasks to. That smartphones are getting smarter and smarter because they are able to do more things. You see Apple that is releasing iPhones like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, now it's that 13, right, Pro, and then they're releasing new things every year. It means that smartphones are getting smarter and smarter. But on the other hand, what about us? Are we getting smarter as well? I don't think so. Sometimes I feel that we're getting more stupid and stupid because we're outsourcing so much of what we have to do, what we're supposed to do, to smartphones, right? So we cannot remember, we don't write, we don't think, we don't do the calculation, we don't read and stuff like that, because all is done by smartphones. So that's the current state. This is the current situation that we are in. Learning is so much at stake because of the smartphones that will make us, in a sense, stupid, feel stupid. And learning is at stake because of the blue light that's emitted out of PC screens. For example, when you look at PC and then the last thing you do before going to bed for a day is maybe, for most cases, like looking at the PC screen exposed to the blue light. And what this does is that your brain is like tricked into thinking that it's still a daytime, because the blue light is a kind of function to the brain that will trick the brain into thinking that it's not nighttime yet. So even though you want to go to sleep and get to sleep, you cannot go to sleep and get to sleep so easily because of the fact that brain is deceived to think that it's still daytime. And why does it happen? Because of the blue light. So if the first thing that you do in the morning is to touch your smartphone, and if the last thing you do before you go to sleep is watching your PC screen, then your learning is at stake. We need to do something about it, or at least we need to understand that this is the current status. This is the distraction that we have, right? So that's the first section. And second section, I want to talk about some of the good things about using PCs and this digital world. One thing is, of course, YouTube. YouTube could be a really good school, like online school in a sense. And one of the YouTube channels that I like very much is called Kokomirai Channel. Of course, this is in Japanese, but this is a guy from Nagoya University who has uploaded a lot of videos about biology, ethics, politics and economy, and all the other subjects. He has already like uploaded hundreds of videos onto this channel, and this is the channel through which I learned ethics subject. It has been really great. And then the surprising thing is that he has also created the Word document, like PDF document, for us to really work on, like questions and answers workbook. And he put it as a link for us to download. This is a downloadable link, and then we can get the PDF free of charge. Like watching these videos is also free of charge. So we see the future of schools on YouTube, from YouTube. Like it's a free school, online school that everyone can have an access, right? Another favorite channel of mine is this History Mundi. This is a person called Keiichi Yamazaki, who is writing a lot of world history books like this, like the textbooks for the world history. This is one of my favorites. And then he has already uploaded more than 700 videos about world history, geography, and Japanese history for high schools. And then I have actually watched his videos like over 500 times to learn about world history, especially modern world history. And then I was able to pass this entrance examination of Tokyo University of Foreign Studies. And then this was one of the universities that I wanted to pass. And then I was able to pass thanks to this Historia Mundi channel. So I really wanted to thank him. Thank you so much. But what do I do now after getting and consuming a lot of contents from YouTube? What I can do right now is to produce, I think. So that's why I'm here to set up a YouTube channel where I talk about English grammar. I teach English grammar in this channel, and I also teach or talk about some of the ways we can improve our simultaneous interpretation skills, because I don't think it is so common that people talk about simultaneous interpretation on a YouTube channel, and I wanted to make this free, accessible contents that everyone can have and watch. Yeah. So I've been doing this, and my English grammar channel is now having 87 times of contents or like classes or courses. Yeah, so I'm still working on that, but this is a way for me to return back, because I earned and learned from this YouTube channel, these YouTube channels. I wanted to return back so that my future generation can also learn from my channel as well. So from this point of view, we can say that YouTube is a bi-directional school. Like you can consume a lot of content from YouTube, you can download a lot, but you can also upload a lot of contents from your side to YouTube, right? So that's why I say that this is bi-directional. This is an interactive channel or interactive platform. So do you know the word like prosumers? Prosumer means a combination of producers and consumers. This means that you can not only consume contents from YouTube, but also produce contents onto the YouTube. And when we think about YouTube this way, YouTube is a matter of literacy. Like if you know how to use YouTube better to enrich your lives, you can always utilize this platform to enrich your lives and to enrich other people's lives as well. So that's one of the examples that I wanted to talk about regarding an online platform. Now, let me talk about learning and environment. Now, I want to talk about my daughter, who is now 5 years old. And this is a series of notes that she has been taking and writing on. She's writing hiragana and Chinese characters by herself. And then why does she do this? Like without me or my wife telling her to do? Because partly we don't have TV here at home. And then there are just notes and pencils on the table. And then when she has time, she just picks up a pencil and writes something. And that's what she is doing. And then I think that's partly because we don't have any TV. Like if you have a TV, you get distracted. It's so easy to pick up a remote controller and press a button like turn on. But it's much more difficult for you to write something. It requires more active motivation, active movement of your hand. So it's more difficult, but it becomes much easier when you don't have any distraction like TV, right? And how does she really write and learn? She actually does it from this way. Like she gets a letter from a kindergarten, and she also gets a free magazine distributed from the kindergarten, and that's what she looks at. And like, okay, I want to write I want to write ro, I want to write ki. Where is the letter? So she would just look into these letters written in Chinese characters, hiragana, katakanas, all of them mixed. So of course she doesn't understand the contents of the letter itself yet, but she is able to discern and distinguish like, okay, this is this is this is u, this is ki, you know. And then she begins to write down. She just imitates those letters. So she's already learning how to write hiragana out of these letters. And of course, I didn't tell her to do this. So she is like voluntarily doing all this. So the important thing for us and a lesson for us to learn from my daughter is that we are like, it's our responsibility to create an environment best suited for learning, right? If my daughter, who is 5 years old, can do this, why not you? So the important thing that I'm gonna give you as a message is that we need to create an environment. Like environment is everything in a sense. So we need to create an environment where you can't, in a sense, run away or be distracted by social media or some other content, but be able to really focus on one thing that you have to do. Right. Now, I also want to talk about one of my favorite speakers. Jim Quick is really now famous, and he has been doing podcasts, and he has been appearing at a lot of TV videos and talk shows and others. And then he always says like how to learn quicker, how to learn faster. And his name Quick shows how quick he can be, but he was not really quick. He had a lot of difficulty learning when he was a child, as you can see and watch his videos, and then you will be able to see how he has changed his life. And he once talked about the importance of learn, earn, and return. And this is what I'm going to talk about as a core of this presentation later on. But we need to have a good sustainability of learning, earning, and returning. I'll be talking more later on. By the way, Jim Quick is great because he's able to memorize 100 people's names without taking notes, and he's able to recite that right after being told. Next, I had an opportunity to interpret for Audrey Tan. She is Taiwan's digital minister, and she said when I was interpreting for her, like I used Pomodoro technique. And when I was interpreting, I didn't know what Pomodoro technique is, but it basically means that we can manage our time better. This is a better time management method. By dividing our endless hours, like 24 hours or 1 year, it's too much, right? By dividing these long hours or years into 30-minute chunk. So if you think about like 30-minute chunk, it's easier for us to manage because it's a smaller unit. Then each 30 minutes is comprised of like 25 minutes of really the main work. You know, you discuss, you read, you speak, you calculate, and you do the work, right, for this 25 minutes. But the rest of the 5 minutes is just to really relax, you know, relax and be ready for the next session, and do the deep breathing so you can really relax and get ready for the next session. So rather than thinking about 24 hours, rather than thinking about 3 hours, 10 hours, or 1 month, or 1 year, you can just focus on 30 minutes because it's a smaller unit of time. So that's how she thinks about it, and I really like that idea. It's also one of the ways for us to manage time and create a better learning environment so we can never run away from it. I also use digital tools strategically to counter our laziness because it's very important. Like we have countless number of digital tools. Like, okay, you can use this app to be more to streamline more, or you can be more efficient, or you can be more effective. There are too many digital tools and apps in the world. But the thing is that you need to really strategically select the apps that really work for you. And my recommendation here is to really use one of the digital tools called Google Calendar, which I think is a really incredibly fascinating one, because you can type in your schedule, and that is synchronized or tied, connected to the Google Gmail. So once you get a Gmail meeting invitation, this is automatically like transferred and connected to the Google Calendar. And you can just coordinate your day by looking at the digital Google Calendar. And if something is rescheduled, then you can just drag and drop, and you can also type in other people's email address to send a meeting invite and share your schedule with other people. And how I use this tool is that I share my schedule with my wife, so that she knows what I'm doing at which part of the day, at which place. For example, I go to Kyoto, I go to Osaka, and do this and that, and then she knows all of it. And when she needs some help, or when I need some help from her in picking up the kids and sending the kids to the kindergartens, and then she can give me help, or I can help as well. So that's how we work together to make sure that we are managing our time and be efficient and be effective. So digital tools are the ones we need to be really selective and use strategically to counter our laziness. Now, let me talk about learning and earning. So as I said, Jim Quick once said, learn, earn, and return, right? So this is going to be the kind of core part of my presentation. We need to think about three factors or three elements here in order to make learning sustainable: learn, earn, and return. So let me first focus on like learning and earning. How do we think about this relationship? One thing we can do is this. Just a moment, please. Yes. How we can think about this is, for example, I read a lot of books like this. And for example, when I was interpreting for Audrey Tan, I read this book, written by Audrey Tan. And this is reading, and this is learning phase. And I created word list for doing interpretation for Audrey Tan. This is a word list. And also I read another book called Where Do Poops Come and Go? This is not a best title to really read for a presentation like this, but you read, and this is about learning. And then what happens after learning is we do the interpretation. Like this is one of the interpretations that I did back in September. It's about a webinar, a medical webinar focused on the access to medical products. At one point of time, this professor from Harvard University talked about the importance of giving access to the people who are really in need of such medicines. So when we think about developing a medicine, we take it for granted that these medicines will be delivered so naturally and supplied to the people in need, but actually it's not really happening. So what's happening really is like we have access issue. Some of the challenges include like infrastructure challenge, or it's too difficult to transport something, or like it's a transport issue, or it's a cost issue. It's too expensive, affordability issue, or it could be just another adoption issue. Like people do not know the existence of these medical or medical products or medicines. So if the medicines are not delivered to these people in need, there should be some factors. There should be some reasons for that. And it's important to acknowledge and identify those factors and address those factors and problems. That's the main, summary of this medical webinar that I translated. And then this was the result of my learning. And I was able to reflect my learning to earning, which is interpreting. Yeah, so I did the learning. I read some of the books, but once again, like this is for Japan's English, medical English examination. I read again this book, which I read 7 or 8 years ago. This is a book. And then I started to do the interpretation. So it's like learning and earning, they are like intertwined. They're closely connected with each other. So that's why I think these two factors are really connected with each other. Another webinar that I did interpretation for is, as I said, like Where Do Poops Come and Go? This was written by a professor from Hosei University. Her name is Yuzawa Noriko. And then she wrote about this book. So I read this book, which is learning phase. And after that, I did this interpretation once again of the webinar. So learning is reading this book, and then earning or getting money, making money is from interpreting, right? So there is a good synergy effect from both of these two phases. So that's why I think learning and earning are intertwined, and it's very important to have the organic connection between these two. Next, let me talk about learning and returning. This is the third element, right? How do we have a good connection or synergy effect between learning and returning? This is how I do it. I have formed a group called Interpretation Study Group, or ISG for short. This is a platform where university students can get together and practice interpreting, translating between Japanese and English. This is one of the photos taken at the school festival. We did a demonstration of interpretation at a university. And I also go to junior high school and high schools to do the career education, where I talk about who interpreters are and what interpreters actually do. And we actually have a small workshop where students are requested to translate a certain, text, and then I always tell them that it's very important to study those basic 5 subjects, right? In Japanese schools. And those studies are going to definitely help you build your future career, I'd say, at this career education. And I also participate at a radio program, and I periodically speak at a radio program called Rough Sketch, or Rahu Sketchy in Japanese. And this is a radio content that is available on Radico, or Radico. That's an app which is available in Japan to have to receive some of the radio programs for free. So if you go to this app, and you'll be able to listen to my radio where I was speaking about what we do as an interpreter, and the connection or the difference between interpreters and translators. It was really interesting to talk about that. So this is how I return what I have learned, return what I have earned, and return to who? Return to students, return to next generation, return to other people who are interested in learning English or learning interpreting and translation. So this is how I think about learning and returning, right? So I have already talked about this trinity here. Learning is basically the beginning of everything, right? And you earn based on what you have learned, right? You do the interpretation, and then you return based on what you have learned or earned. So you need to always think about, how do I return this back? How do I learn with the intention of teaching? As Jim Quick always says, it's very important to learn something with the intention of teaching, because you get to learn twice. So that's a very important thing. It's an important element to think about when making your learning sustainable, right? But it's not so easy, right? It's not so easy to make your learning sustainable. Why? Because of the distraction from social media, because of the distraction from COVID-19 or all the other distractions that we can think about. Because of this, learning is damaged, learning is impeded, and learning is prevented, earning is failing, returning is not taking place. So what we have to do with this social media distraction, like you watch Facebook, you watch YouTube, you watch Instagram, you watch LinkedIn, whatever it is, you need to acknowledge that there is a social distraction, and this is a matter of habit or creating an environment, as I said, to counter that, right? So what we need is an environment to really counter against those social media distraction or the COVID-19 distraction. Like under COVID-19, you have to always look at your PC screen and do the meetings or teach or listen to a conference, listen to a class. It's so hard when everything is taking place online. But let's create an environment where you are able to really sustain learning, earning, and returning by creating an environment, right? So to counter that social distraction. How do we do that? I've already talked about this anyway, because environment can be set up by a 5-year-old daughter of mine. If 5-year-old can do this, why not you? That's the question, right? And then another thing that's missing here is the importance of motivation. You cannot always get into the learning phase without anything. You need a kind of motivation that will move you, because motivation comes from right? It comes from movement, right? So motivation is the key for us to start learning and start earning and returning. But the thing is, energy and motivation are not always the same. They mean similar things, but not always the same thing. Because energy is to your body, but motivation is to your mind. So we need to acknowledge that. Just because you drink Red Bull, Zone, or Monster, whatever it is, this kind of energy drinks, doesn't mean that you're motivated. You get it at the energy, but you're not motivated enough, because it's about mental strength rather than physical strength. So we need to make a differentiation, make a difference between these two. And the question here is like, who refills the gasoline of your car and not drive, right? When you get gasoline and when you get fueled, you need to be able to run, you need to be able to drive something, right? And the same thing goes, like, who says, I got so motivated, so I'll sleep, that doesn't happen, right? When you get motivated, you need to use that motivation for you to move you to a learning state. Because if you can get into the learning state, you may be able to go to the earning state. And if you can go to earning state, you can go to the returning state. So the important thing here is that energy and motivation are different, because energy is to your body and motivation is to your mind. And once you get motivation, you have to use it. It's like money. Don't save it. You have to use it to get something out of it. So that's the point I was trying to make. And then, yeah. So this is the final like scheme of what I've been talking about so far. Like, you need to have a good learn, earn, and return cycle, but at the same time, you need to have an environment where, like, environment can be referred to as a set of habits, or the collection of habits, or aggregation of habits that you have accumulated. Sometimes it works for you to work against and prevent those social media distraction, and so the COVID-19 distraction. You can work away from those distractions by creating a sound environment. But on the other hand, you also need to have motivation to move you into the learning state. But how do we get those motivation? My answer is, you have to go out and do experiences, have experiences. It's so easy, right? So for example, it could be just an invitation to a webinar, for example. There is a webinar, so I'm just interested, I'm just going, this is a new experience. And if you go to the experience, you get a motivation that will prompt you to the learning phase, right? So experience, whatever it is, could fuel your motivation. But the thing is, when you get the motivation, use it. Don't save it, right? That's the point I was talking about. And those are very important points, I think, to make your learning sustainable. People talk about sustainability, SDGs. People always talk about that. I understand. Like, people talk about sustainable energy, renewable energy, sustainable economy, sustainable society. But do we really talk about sustainable learning? I think now it's time for us to talk about sustainable learning, so we can really sustain our learning and learn, earn, and return. This is a kind of the cycle I want you to draw a picture of, and then being able to imagine, not only imagine, but also, implement to enrich your lives. So these are the takeaways or conclusions. First of all, we need to acknowledge that under COVID-19, learning is at stake. Learning is at risk. Learning is in danger. Number two, YouTube is a matter of literacy. As I said, it could be an online school. It could be in a bi-directional online school. You can not only consume, but also produce and contribute to the bigger world of knowledge. Number three, it's your responsibility to create a learning environment. If my daughter, 5-year-old, can do this, why not you? Number four, learning is sustainable. Learning should be a sustainable thing. You need to be able to create this sustainability in learning, so that whatever you are doing, whether learning, working, earning, and returning, teaching, there is a cycle that is consistent in these three phases. And experience is a fuel that will prompt you to the learning phase. And you need to have an environment that will shut off the social media distraction and COVID-19 distraction. So that's the points I wanted to make, and this concludes my presentation. And I hope this was of any help to the listeners. And I hope we'll be able to engage more deeply after this presentation, and hopefully we can have some more deep dive discussions if you're interested in learning more about what I'm talking about. So thank you.